Good morning, people. Morning. It is. What is it? It's Thursday. Thursday, March 21st. Oh my, where'd this month go? Jeez. So March 21st, we had yesterday. Like the main event is going. Well, it was right, and the main topic of conversation is going to be the Federal Reserve and Jerome Powell, what that kind of broke down in. And yesterday we got the closing remarks of the rate decision for the first quarter. Right. Initially, we were expecting to see the first quarter end with the first rate cut, which would have pulled markets down significantly in that regard. But what Jerome Powell did yesterday, right, we kept rates between 525 and 550, 525 basis points to 550 basis points in that range remained unchanged. I believe it was the seventh meeting of that. These rates remained unchanged. Fifth or seventh? Goddamn. I don't remember, but between the fifth or seventh, somewhere was the this was they kept things unchanged. Now, to kind of summarize some key takeaways from this, realistically, what had happened, very very bullish event here, very dovishness going forward, and to really generalize and to really, I guess. Dumb it down, there was the inclination that Jerome Powell kind of, I guess, inadvertently mentioned, or I guess inadvertently kind of alluded to just pretty much giving up on inflation, giving up on QT. It doesn't matter for now because it's going cyclical anyways. We have an election year. We have an election to win because Trump said if he won, he's not gonna keep Powell on board, right? So he needs to win this thing. From the Biden standpoint, there's also $2 trillion plus in perpetual deficits of to finance. So if you don't own assets, now's the time. The momentum stocks are going to continue. You don't own assets, remain poor. This is what Powell was pretty much alluding to. He was pretty much helping the asset owners and is going to continue to do so in this election year. The way that I see this, there's going to be continued upside momentum, and the pullbacks are going to be very shallow and they're going to be tight, and expecting something massive realistically of a magnitude of over 10% I think is fairly unrealistic for this market. The more the bears keep piling in, the longer it goes and the higher. So we continue to expect three rate cuts this year, right? According to closely watched dot plot that was published yesterday, that was pretty much enough to push markets into record highs. Because everyone was pretty much expecting at the beginning, or I should say at the end of last year, everyone was expecting to see the first rate cut to come now, right, in March. That got pushed aside. There's not that heavy of probability that we'll even see it in June. So if that gets pushed aside, more upside. It's pretty much the only thing that can pull this thing down at this point. So gold printed a new record high as well, jumping about $2,200 an ounce, and I think there's probably more to the upside. Um, we also saw that Jay Powell also warned about a bumpy inflation ride, meaning which may mean rates could be restrictive for longer and dialed back on the scope of cuts in 2025 and beyond, aka whatever, inflation's there, you're not going to do anything about it, time to pump higher in election year, right? So speaking of monetary policy, the Swiss National Bank also got a head start on the Fed overnight, surprising investors with the first rate cut for developed countries. But when it comes down to Powell and the Fed and the current market condition, everyone's waiting for this thing to implode, right? Everyone's like, oh, AI bubble, this bubble, that bubble. But from a monetary policy standpoint, I think that dips are going to be tight, and realistically, seeing S&P into 6,000 by the end of the year isn't something that outrageous. Seeing another 10 or seeing another 20% higher by the end of the year, it seems like crazy, but realistically, these pullbacks are going to be very shallow, and we've been on a massive rocket, and a lot of people are just trying to call these tops, tops, tops. I just don't see that happening, right? That's my opinion. I wanted to see a deeper pullback maybe into the summer in equities, but we're losing time, especially after yesterday. The probabilities of larger pullbacks are getting destroyed very, very quickly, right? So you get 2 to 5% realistically in the SPY of pullbacks. I think that's honestly going to be gift worthy, right, this year. Something to consider and something to go forward with. Today, Thursday, after the Federal Reserve meeting minutes, I'm going to talk about the S&P and the NASDAQ, but S&P made a new high. NASDAQ is just shy of the new high, about 40 points. The NASDAQ high is on the futures, 18,690-ish, right? Just, I think, a point above that. So we'll talk about those and how that and what may transpire from that. But realistically, if there's no selling today, there's just going to be a bid continuous into the end of the week. We'll see what that selling might look like because, again, very, very bullish. Trying to call the tops, trying to sell every single rally is going to get you burned. Better understand where the order flow is and lean on that to continue the momentum until it changes. So before we talk about that, there's a few other slight news events that I want to go through here. One of them is the IPO market. It's been pretty quiet over the last 2 years, but maybe about to change with investors witnessed a successful debut for AI chip play Astra Labs on Wednesday, which soared 72% in its first session. That is freaking crazy. Speaking of chips and whatnot, I have NVIDIA here as always. A Lab, I believe, is the ticker symbol. All right, well, no data here, thank you. I guess it's not on this just yet. I don't know why. Excuse me there, neck crack. But let's just go back to NVIDIA. Reddit as well, one of the oldest and most popular social sites on the web, will be listed on the New York Stock Exchange this morning, RDDT, so we'll see if that populates. So we'll see if all goes well. It can signal an interest in new issuance, has finally come back and made a comeback in this market. So pricing at the high-end target, Reddit shares will be marked at about $34 a piece, giving the company a valuation of $6.4 billion, including exercised options. The figure is around half of the $10 million valuation that it reached in 2021, but was during the era of cheap money and speculative boom that followed the onset of the COVID pandemic, naturally. And meanwhile, the social media platform, which has 267.5 million weekly active users as of December 31st, generated $804 million in revenue in 2023, up 21% from a year ago, while its net loss narrowed to about $90 million, right, from $158 million in 2022. Reddit has reserved as much as 8% of its offering for power users, including its army of mods who help guide and create the platform's many communities. Other oversubscribed shares will be going to institutional investors, but getting the retail crowd involved is prompting speculation that RDDT could turn into a meme stock. With increased volatility or major run-up, that could leave unfortunate hodlers holding the bag. So some hints of irony there, realistically. Remember, Wall Street Bets, a forum on Reddit, was behind a massive meme mania that took place in 2021, which involved players from GameStop, AMC, BlackBerry, Bed Bath & Beyond, Walgreens. Then the list is almost endless, realistically. So Reddit has never turned a profit in nearly 2 decades of existence, but it's touting some big plans ahead of the IPO. We believe that there's an emerging opportunity in data licensing, noted the company, which recently inked an AI content agreement with Google and could bring in more deals to help train large language models. Reddit is also planning to build features like a marketplace for products and services, and projected its total addressable market for global advertising to be $1.4 trillion by 2027. We'll see. In other news, Elon Musk's Neuralink has released a chip featuring its first patient, or a clip featuring its first patient. Maybe you've all seen it on X or somewhere else. With its brain chip implant, Nolan Arbo? I don't know. Anyways, Nolan, a 29-year-old quadriplegic patient who received a device in January, was able to move a computer cursor to play chess using only neural signals. So while the demonstration wasn't the first in the brain implant field, Neuralink's device goes deeper into the brain and contains a far more electrodes than target individual neurons instead of groups or clusters. So most of Neuralink's competitors are also not publicly traded, including Synchron, Onward, Precision Neuroscience, and BlackRock Neurotech. interesting stuff. So go check that video out. It seemed pretty interesting to go from there. In terms of markets and the overall movement, we saw the rocket ship rise like crazy yesterday, and the overnight session did pretty well to hold up the bid. So what we're looking at is in Japan up 2%, Hong Kong nearly 2%, China about flat, India nearly 1% up, London up about 1%, Paris down 0.3, Frankfurt up about 0.3, the S&P up about 0.3, Nasdaq nearly 1%, crude oil down a bit, gold up 2.2, Bitcoin up about 6.5. So we'll see what the market brings today, but realistically we've been pumping and pumping and pumping, and there's a decent bit of upside momentum after what we got yesterday. We had a plethora of large market participants that came into the end of the session as well, as you'll see here on the screen with these colored dots. Speaking of colored dots and all this order flow that I'm going to talk about today at about 3 p.m. Eastern time or 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, I'm not necessarily sure, but we've got a YouTube live stream talking about implementing order flow into your levels to generate trade levels based on order flow for higher probabilities of understanding directionality and areas of movement. So come check that out later today. But if we take a look at the market, right, you see all these like red dots shaping up, blue and red dots. They're very large orders that come in. They help us identify what the volume and the momentum movement looks like. So yesterday, throughout the day, even though we had a very nice incline to the upside, it was fairly gradual and very heavy on the volume side, prompting more upside on the overnight session and potentially could lead to more upside on today's session. The way I see it is there's two figure spots on the S&P 500 futures that the sellers have to take over, right? Otherwise, it's going to be hard trying to sell every freaking rally that comes into this. These spots are generated by massive market orders and a heavy volume that came in, and they actually sit right at this 52, 90, 293, 94 area, that mid to low 90, and then also down at that 52, 70 to 75. Those two blocks are going to be imperative for the buy side to come in and sustain this market bid that's been going on. So everyone needs to watch those on the S&P 500 futures. That's where the volume builds up. You start breaking those, right, you could see some kind of turning point in structural momentum as well as market orders that come in. Otherwise, right, I'm still fairly bullish as long as those two levels hold, and that's what I'm going to start off with. Trading into all-time highs can be difficult. I think it's not the easiest of tasks realistically, and trying to call tops continuously is a much, much more dangerous game than just going along with the flow and the trend. But if you don't want to buy highs, just stick it out and wait for those key areas, key distributions, and key regions to trade, and be a little more patient with the market movement. With that being said, I want to open up our live trading room with our futures traders today. I'll see you guys in there. Check out TRADEPROacademy.com. You can also check us out community.tradeproacademy.com for that free Discord. So, a lot of yapping today, one of the longer morning market updates, but TLDR, TDL, whatever the hell it is, Jerome Powell says own assets were going up higher. So that's how I perceive it. That's the information that I got from this. I'll be looking for smaller pullbacks throughout the course of the year, and let us see how the day goes. So, thank you everyone. Take care, and we'll chat soon.